Unmute. Right, right.
Okay, now I am audible?
Right, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. So we'll start in another 10 minutes.
Okay, no problem.
So good afternoon, everyone. So today we have gathered here to celebrate the World Tourism Day. As we all know that World Tourism Day is celebrated on 27 September. As on this day, United Nations World Tourism Organization was established, and this organization is responsible as a global body for promoting tourism in the entire world and spreading the awareness about its importance. So there have been various challenges globally for the tourism, and the tourism industry is putting various efforts to achieve and overcome these challenges. The theme for World Tourism Day for 2022 is Rethinking Tourism, and World Tourism Day in this year will rethink that how we do tourism. This means we should put planet and people first and bring everyone from government, business, local communities around the world to have a shared vision to have a more sustainable, inclusive and resilient sector. Center for Sustainable Habitat, Guru Nanak Dev University has organized this webinar to celebrate World Tourism Day. Now I invite Professor Dr. Ashwini Luthra, coordinator of Center for Sustainable Habitats, to say a few words before we start with the webinar.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. But your voice is very low.
Voice is low, so
Right.
maybe I'm speaking low. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Uh, Thank you very much, Dr. Ritu, for introducing the theme of today's webinar. And on the occasion, I must welcome the distinguished speakers, Dr. Kiran, Dr. Kumara, and Dr. Sakshi, to deliberate on a very pertinent topic as on today, because as per the World Tourism Organization report, till date, since the breakout of COVID in 2000, only 60% of world's tourism has regained, meaning thereby that there is still a deficiency of 40% to come to that level. We know that tourism is a very important part of life, and it is where we have to look into the new normal for the tourism aspect as well. And in this relation, we have to look into the innovative, sustainable, and creative kind of alternatives whereby the tourism can regain its position in the world. At the same time, it is not a case of only regaining, it is a case of excelling in the times to come. In this relation, it is very pertinent that tourism sector is very important in the sectors of job creation, business and advancements, and at the same time, it is a driving force for heritage conservation as well, or protecting the heritage. And it is in this reference that different sectors of tourism need to be deliberated. The theme of the World Tourism Day, as suggested by United Nations, is very pertinent that we need to rethink different dimensions of tourism, I would say, for the times to come. And in this relation, even SDG 17 becomes very important, where it says about partnerships for the other 16 goals, because all those goals, they become part of tourism one way or the other. So it is in this connection that we need to look into whether what kind of say dimensions are required to be addressed to rethink the tourism aspect. And at the same time, I would say today's distinguished speakers, they are working in diverse fields, though all of them are planners, but their background and their research in different fields would add flavor to today's webinar. So, on this occasion, keeping reference of this, I welcome the distinguished speakers and the participants of this webinar. And I hope that today's webinar would be a very fruitful outcome in relation to rethinking tourism in the times to come. So without taking much time, I hand over the proceedings of the webinar to Dr. Ritu, who is the moderator for the today's webinar. And I thank Dr. Ritu for giving me the opportunity to talk to you for some time. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Ritu.
Thank you, sir. So we have three presentations today. So first presentation will be by Dr. Kiran Sadhu, followed by Dr. H.S. Kumara, and third speaker of the day is Dr. Sakshi Sami. So Dr. Kiran Sandhu, she is an urban and regional planner working with Guru Nanak Dev University. So she did her PhD in Griffith University, Australia, and she has over 25 years of experience working in urban and regional planning area. She also contributed in the establishment of master and PhD programs in the Ethiopian Civil Service University. And she had also over 35 papers in various journals of international and national repute. She had also published a book on privatization of municipal solid waste management in Indian cities and its implications. She had also participated in various national and international conferences and various capacity building programs. Amongst the capacity building programs, she has worked with USAID on a strategic participatory town planning project for the Southern Sudan government. Other than academics, she had also interest in English poetry, and she had published various books in English poetry. Now, I welcome you, ma'am, and this stage is all yours. Please, ma'am. Ma'am, you need to unmute.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ritu. Am I audible to you?
Yes, ma'am. Now you are audible.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And thank you for that very elaborate presentation, though I must humbly admit that I am just a sort of a novice, I would still say that. And thanks very much to the Center of Sustainable Habitat and the initiative of Dr. Luthra to celebrate the International Tourism Day. And indeed, I think in the post-COVID times, it's a very relevant theme to think about, to rethink and reimagine tourism in many different ways possible so that we can contribute to economic, social well-being of the populations and especially the poor. So allow me a minute just to put up my presentation and then I think we'll carry this forward.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay, just to ask you again, is the presentation visible?
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay, wonderful.
But it's not visible on screen slideshow.
Is it not visible now? No?
It's visible, but slideshow is not visible. You can present your entire screen.
Is it all right now?
Dr. Kiran,
हाँ जी.
ये जो है ना आपका if you share entire screen.
Okay, just a minute, sir.
Yeah, you go back. You put it off.
Are you able to see now?
No, kindly put it off.
Fine, okay. Just give me a second, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, now on the last border menu, you go to the arrow point.
Just a second, sir. On the presentation?
No, not on the presentation. In the Google.
Your entire screen, okay.
Yeah, entire screen. Then screen will be visible somewhere. There is a black screen. Click on it.
Your entire screen.
then click on that black screen. Share will blow up.
Open it again. Just a minute. Just a second, sir. Okay, now.
Entire screen. Then you get a black screen. Click on the screen. You will get share in blue.
Entire screen aa gaya. Okay.
Then there would be a black screen. Click on it. Is it coming or not?
Hanji.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So
Thank you, sir.
now you blow it. Come
Okay.
into the presentation mode and
Okay.
just move the slides 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yes, now it is moving, and you can click on hide.
Okay.
बाहर आ रहा है, hide को click हाँ.
ठीक है. Sir, thank you indeed. I really appreciate your help, sir. And okay, so I also welcome the esteemed audience who are here to listen to us, and I hope somehow the presentation, I look forward to an interaction, and I also hope to learn something while sharing this information with you. So the topic which is going to be the focus is rethinking tourism post-COVID-19 pandemic, a pro-poor approach. So as we already know that the SDG goals have brought a lot of things on center stage, and one of them is about elimination of poverty. And if we look at this diagram here on the slide, we find that somehow or the other, as Dr. Luthra mentioned, that the 17th SDG is directly related to the partnerships for tourism, but all the 17 goals are directly or indirectly related. So if we start from number 1, it's about no poverty. Number 2 is about zero hunger, and number 3 is about well-being. And each one of these goals somehow gets related to tourism. So therefore, any kind of tourism activity must be extremely sensitive to the issues of the poor. And particularly when we look at target 8.9, then it aims that by 2030, there is a need to devise and implement policies to promote sustainable tourism, which is creating jobs and promote local culture and products. So the idea, particularly when it comes to 14.7, the idea is that it must accrue good economic benefits to small islands and the least developing countries. Now, if we look at the impact of pandemic, I mean, when we talk about reimagining or rethinking tourism, it becomes extremely important to have a look at the impact that COVID-19 has had on the tourism industry. So we must also appreciate that tourism had become one of the largest industries in the world just before the pandemic, generating about 9.2 trillion US dollars in 2019. And it accounted for over 10% of the global GDP and 333 million jobs worldwide. However, if you look at the graphs below, we find that there has been a significant fall. So this is the data for 2019. And then from 9.2 trillion, it moved even below, 5 trillion. So thereafter, when it comes to number of travel and tourism jobs, so from 333 in 2020, it moved to 271. There has been a slight recovery in 2021, but the setback is said to be at least about 30 years. So of course, it will take some time before the figures return to normal. Now, if we look at the international tourist mobility post-pandemic, then the figures are really astounding. So in the first quarter of 2020, you see minus 72%. In 2021, it improved marginally, so minus 71%. And with all the forecasts which have been undertaken by the World Tourist Organization, the anticipated scenarios for 2022 is something like a minus 30% or a 45%. So while there are improvements, it is still expected that the shock which came from lockdowns and from the pandemic exceptionally have hampered the quality of life and greatly impacted employment in the poor sectors. And if we look at the impact of the pandemic region-wise, then particularly if we look at Asia and Pacific region, then minus 94 has been the shortfall in 2021, and Europe has been comparatively less impacted. But yet, when you look at the absolute values, indeed, the impact to tourism has been definitely, it has been a shock universally. Now, there has been a tremendous job loss and displacement post the pandemic. So huge jobs, placing over 100 million direct tourism jobs at risk, especially the people who are engaged in micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. And this represented about 80% of the sector. And a lot of these people happen to be, women and young people who are employed in the sector, which is largely informal. So while the tourism experienced slightly increase, yet the arrivals continue to remain well below the pre-pandemic year. Coming to the Indian context, the Indian tourist industry has been creating large amount of jobs, almost 87.5 million jobs with 12.75% of the total employment, and has contributed greatly to the Indian economy as well. So when it comes to the total world global scenario, India ranked about 8th with respect to the total direct travel and has contributed significantly to tourism. Now, if you look at this graph here, the direct contribution to GDP has been about 2.7, and to employment direct about 6.7, about 15.3 in terms of indirect employment. However, post you see the pandemic, the overall loss has been considerable to the economy. So the India's GDP shrank by 8%, and it implies a total economic loss of about 11.6 trillion. So the shock to the tourist industry has been really, really tremendous. Now, if you look at this diagram here, which is given by the MCAER, and what is the estimate is that in the first quarter of 2021, 14.5 million jobs were lost. And if we look at indirect jobs, then at least 33.3 million jobs, which are indirect in terms of people who are working in the service industry, which is very closely related to the tourist industry. So while the figures have picked up, yet the shock at that point of time is still something which is, deeply felt. Then lost in tourist household income, because a lot of people, the wage and the non-wage incomes were highly impacted. So there was a reduced demand for goods and services, and the multiplier shocks which happened at that point of time led to minus 124.4 percentage of a shortfall in tourist household income. So this data gives us a tremendous sort of a feedback about how tourism, and particularly people who were impacted were the poor people who work in the informal tourist economy. So most of the employment, at least about 85 to 90% of the employment, continues to be in the informal tourist sector. Now, it was interesting to have a look at the National Tourist Policy. This policy was initiated in November 2021. And one of the things which was mentioned in the tourist policy, let's remember that this is a draft policy. The actual policy stands, which is 2002. This policy has still not been finalized, so it continues to be a draft. So, but the policy does highlight the COVID-19 pandemic, and it highlights this as an opportunity to reimagine the future of tourism. So the argument here can be that can the future post-pandemic tourism in India be shaped by a pro-poor approach? And perhaps not only in India, but even other economies, especially the poor economies or the less income economies, need to have bring pro-poor approach at the heart of their tourism and other agendas. So since the Indian policy is talking about reimagining the future of tourism, I think it opens the scope for bringing pro-poor at the center stage of the tourism policy. Now, while the tourism policy does not specifically talk about the term pro-poor, but it does have certain clause which one can say can be closely associated. So number one, it talks about aligning with the SDG goals. Number 5.11 talks about promoting inclusivity. So one can say that this indirectly actually targets pro-poor development. And it talks about promoting skill development initiatives that will ensure inclusivity irrespective of gender and other factors. Then tourism in terms of creating a large number of medium and small scale enterprises. So accommodation, catering, tour operators, travel, etc., handicrafts. Also, this particular sector, the small and medium enterprises they are the vital sources for creating tourism, particularly for employment for low income, poverty-stricken groups. And however, the basic conclusion from the tourist policy was that a strong pro-poor approach is lacking. So it gives us some kind of a potential is there, because this tourism policy is still not finalized. So there could be a possibility that the pro-poor approach is actually added formally into the policy. So when we look at pro-poor tourism, what exactly it is defined as tourism which brings net benefits to the poor. And it is not really a product. So let's be mindful of that it is not really a product or a sector, but it is an approach. So whatever is the nature of tourism development, if pro-poor development can be kept at the heart of it, then it becomes an approach to target different sectors of tourist economy. So the key objective is to enable the poor and marginalized people in receiving maximum possible benefits from the sector. So all these strategies which are to be made are specifically on two grounds. One is to unlock the opportunities for the poor, and the second is to expand the overall size of the sector. Now, when we look at different characteristics, there are a number of characteristics here, so I might not go into details of all of them, but the idea is we must know that the times now are neoliberalist, capitalist times. So there must be a system that the poor can be absorbed within the capitalist markets, because in the free market economy, most of the time what happens is that there is down the hierarchy, the exploitation of the poor engaged in the economy becomes acute. So some kind of shock absorbers, etc., are required so that pro-poor tourist opportunities can survive in the neoliberal markets. Then wider dependence on existing tourist structures, which means that it's not about creating new possibilities alone, but it is also about harnessing the existing structures which are available. And the net benefits can be accrued from the sector, which can directly benefit the poor. And then this kind of tourism can pertain to any kind. I mean, it could be beach tourism, it could be slum tourism, it could be wellness tourism, it could be cultural or historical, all different sectors. I mean, that is another matter of research, I would say. And then it can be from stakeholders which are from national, regional, or of course, private sector involvement. So all these different factors, and then there's one more important factor is that it's not only about benefiting them directly, but also indirect benefits such as water, sanitation, health, education, and infrastructure augmentations. So when we look at poverty alleviation, possibilities through tourism, then there are many possibilities. Right now, we know that a significant majority of the country continues to be dependent upon farm livelihood opportunities. So tourism gives a possibility to develop non-farm livelihood opportunities, especially knowing that the farming sector, again, there are a number of multiple problems involving the sector, and people are not able to thrive on farming opportunities alone. So education and training and developing enterprise, giving support to small and medium enterprises, then simultaneously development of healthcare and infrastructure services. Then at the same time, responsible tourism, which talks about sustainable environmental management. Then the big mega companies, etc., which are involved in tourism and other economic sectors of development are directly made to bring about corporate social responsibilities, as also create a number of employment opportunities down the hierarchy. And then access to the markets for the poor, because many times the markets completely eliminate the poor. So they have no option except to engage in informal setups. So then in this way, they can be empowered and there can be a possibility of diversification of livelihood. And pro-poor tourism can actually be used as an approach to target poverty. So therefore, we could divide it into three pillars, three parts. When we talk about pro-poor tourism. So one of them is the one which accrues direct economic benefits. The second is about livelihood benefits. And the third is about participation and partnerships with different sectors. So when we talk about economic benefits, the idea is to increase access of the poor by expanding business and employment opportunities. And in terms of livelihood benefits, the idea is to address the negative social and environmental impacts, such as lost accesses to land, coastal areas and other resources, and social disruption or exploitation, which might be undertaken by mega companies or capitalists who are exploiting economic resources, which might actually disrupt rural livelihoods particularly. And then participation and partnerships, wherein the rural communities, particularly community-based tourism, becomes a major tool in initiating pro-poor tourism activities. So these can be harnessed to develop new tourist products in the post-COVID times. So when it comes to the Government of Indian schemes, I had the opportunity to have a look at some of these. So there is a potential to fine-tune some of these schemes around the pro-poor tourism approach. So there are 3 schemes which I thought might be potential schemes. So one of them is Swadesh Darshan 2.0. The second is the Prasad scheme, which is about pilgrim rejuvenation and spiritual augmentation. And the third is capacity building for service provider scheme. Now in the Prasad scheme, I came across the term pro-poor specifically. So this term, this is the only place in all the schemes including the national policy where the term has been specifically used. However, I still feel that there is a lot of anomaly around the term, and this term needs greater focus as well as clarification, so that all these different schemes can be, they can harness and they can directly be related to how to, formulate strategies related to harnessing tourism to the advantage of the pro-poor. So when we talk about contribution of tourism to local economies, I mean, that's about it. How this will be done, the schemes are stopping short of going into details. I think till the time we actually go into details of mentioning wherever pro-poor tourism can be harnessed, the schemes will not be able to do anything much. So I do see a potential in these 3 schemes, and there is a possibility for revision and augmentation of these schemes around the pro-poor approach. So the other important thing which the pandemic revealed was that there is a need to bring it, like I mentioned, at the heart of tourism planning and development, and through a 2-tier approach. And the first one is creating safety nets, particularly microfinance, soft loans, fiscal incentives, and infrastructure support for artisans, skilled and unskilled, poor, engaged in informal, direct and indirect tourist ventures. And this became very evident, as I will show you some examples. During the pandemic, the safety nets were completely missing, which brought many people just on the roadside because they didn't have the required finances to sustain the times. The second important factor is to mainstream pro-poor tourism through formal recognition in policies and schemes and deliberate strategy formulations. So again, like I mentioned, this requires a complete set of research. When we talk about deliberate strategy formulation, it will require a complete set of research. For example, just taking one kind of tourism, say beach tourism, what would be the strategy formulation? And that actually would really help in streamlining and mainstreaming pro-poor tourism. So some examples which came out during the COVID times, some of you might have actually come across these examples. So this is an example of Rajasthan, as we know, is very famous for its cultural heritage. So the folk musicians of Rajasthan suffered heavily, so much so that this is an example of one of the folk musicians from Barmer who ended up in near starvation because the family lost all the avenues of income because of there was no cultural events and marriages, etc. So this is a news which was published on 6th of June 2021. So starvation-like crisis because there was no government policy or no scheme which could actually help these rural artisans. So then finally some NGOs came forward to help them. But yet if you, I do remember at that point of time, if you see some of these, crowdfunding platforms such as Donate Card, etc. So they were running advertisements to help the rural artisans because they were facing such kind of starvation. Then this is an example from Amritsar, the city where our School of Planning is located. So one of the, Amritsar again is a tourist city. So one of the major fallout was that the tourism and hospitality industry stared at great uncertainty. So this is the news from the Hindustan Times, 28th of May 2020. And if we look at these 2 pictures, then we find that this is one of the prominent cultural places called Sada Pind. And women employment, there's a huge amount of women who come from the surrounding villages and who are employed here, and they sort of create experience for the tourists who want to see what kind of cuisine, etc. is prepared. So all of them overnight, they became jobless. And Wagah border is known for border tourism. So a number of people who are engaged in a small, very small informal sale of commodities such as flags and caps, etc. So more than 200 of them were rendered, jobless. So therefore, I come back to reiterating the point and emphasizing it that pandemic has shown us that tourism can be such a fragile economic, setup. So there is a need to rethink, reimagine, and stabilize the tourist systems. And some of the last words then. So tourism development has still not fully or formally incorporated poverty elimination at its core. So this is something which is still acutely lacking. And then giving the massive impact that tourism has had on many of the world's poor, pro-poor tourism needs to be brought at the center stage of the tourist agenda, especially in a country like India, which it should strictly be focused on. Then participation by the poor in tourism and the benefits they gain, it depends upon a range of critical factors. So supportive policy measures need to be formulated. Like I said, this throws open an arena for further debate, further development of research, further argumentation, further policy developments. And I think there is a lot of, again, unexploited scope for adapting pro-poor tourism interventions to enhance livelihood benefits to the poor. So for one, I think we at School of Planning, we've already done something of this nature. For example, we've had students taking up, thesis on tourism development in tribal areas. And I think in the post-pandemic times, we could bring pro-poor poverty at a center stage and also see how the urban as well as the rural poor could benefit from a policy which is totally proactive and which brings pro-poor tourism to the center stage. So with these words, I thank you all for a very patient hearing. And I hope that this will lead to further research and deliberation. So thank you very much. And thank you for a very patient hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. It was indeed a really good presentation, as you had focused on that we need to work on pro-poor tourism. And it can be only done with the help of proper interventions at the policy level and at the scheme level by the government. So there are two things I would like to add here for the participants. One thing is that if you have any questions from any of the participants, you can post those questions in the chat box, and your questions will be taken at the end of all the presentation. Second thing is that for the certificate, post the session is over, an email will be coming to you on your registered email ID. From there, you need to fill the feedback form, and once you fill the feedback form, you will receive an e-certificate on the your email ID. So moving forward with the second speaker, the second speaker with us is Dr. H.S. Kumara. So he is an associate professor in a School of Planning and Architecture from the University of Mysore. Dr. Kumara has more than 19 years of teaching and consultancy experience. He has also worked with World Bank and Asian Development Bank projects. He has published around 40 research articles in various international and national peer-reviewed journals, and 42 research papers in various seminars, workshops, and training programs. He has also done 5 research projects which are sponsored by the Government of Karnataka and Government of India. Dr. Kumara has also done various professional certification programs, and he has been the coordinator and even member and council member of various committees and various organizations. Other than that, he had taken various additional responsibility. For example, he was a coordinator with University Swayam, that is UGC Youth Program, central coordinator for various other program, and nodal person also. So without wasting much time, I now invite Dr. H.S. Kumara to share his view on.
Thank you very much, madam. I'm audible? Yeah, madam, I am audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes. Good afternoon, ma'am. My screen is visible?
Sir, it's not on the slideshow. You do one thing, you present your entire screen.
Yeah, Dr. Kumar, are you facing any problem?
Yeah, 1 minute, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir, it is visible now.
Now it's full screen.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you can
I
you
think,
can you can you push to the next? Just test it. Next slide. Yes, it is working. Okay.
yes, sir. Good afternoon. First of all, I will thank Professor Ashwani Luthra sir given an opportunity to speak on rethinking tourism and economic development. I'm going to, I think, Dr. Kiran already given for rethinking tourism on proper thing. Then I will discuss on rethinking tourism and economic development. What are the challenges as well as some opportunities? Some of the aspects probably I think already covered in the previous fellow presenter. The very important, one of the interesting component as a tourism is one of the largest growing sector. Then also taking the global economy as far as travel and tourism sector contribution, because already you are aware of the thing as far as taking for the almost US whatever the dollar 8 trillion to the global economy. Then also it's sharing about 10.4% of the global GDP. This is also one of the component we need to be keep it in our mind. Then the second important we need to be understand the tourism sector bringing new opportunity for many countries. This is very important. As far as understanding, some of the economies mainly driven by the tourism, probably taking for some of the case example of various other countries. Then also taking for the various citizen reason. At the same time, we need to be think what are the new challenges as well as for the opportunity. That's also very important. Then further, you taking for under the tourism sector, what is an employment opportunity taking into consideration in the global share? Almost 10% of the total population is directly or indirectly engaged in, as well as for the tourism is concerned. Further discussing tourism, we call it as an industry, because why we call it as an industry? The tourism again there is a lot of monetary transaction taking into consider. Then we consider as an industry, taking tourism industry as well as for the economic development. We need to be understand very high potential for development, both the domestic as well as for the non-domestic tourists. Then further taking for the as far as an Indian context, almost 9.2% of total GDP is generated through the tourism sector. Then also third largest foreign exchange earner for the country. Then recently there was a study conducted by Travel and Tourism Competitiveness Report 2021 ranks India is 54th out of 117 countries. Even earlier there is a 34. I think they taken for the almost in the 2019 taking into consider 184 countries. Then, as far as India, Karnataka is concerned, Karnataka also is for the 8th largest state. They're taking for the ranking of 11th in non-domestic tourism among Indian states. Then, the very important, Karnataka also given for the more accelerated about 14.8% of the state GDP. This is also very interesting as well as for the encouraging for the tourism. Then also given we have the as a theme as a brand of one state many world. That is for the thing. Then again, we are focusing for the another important as well as for the Mysore is concerned, because already we are aware of the thing Mysore is celebrating for the world famous Dasara. That's also very important. That we'll discuss in the later slide. What is the as well as for the tourism sector is concerned. Then taking for the tourism plays very important economic role, particularly in India, as far as in the data set is concerned. Almost 39 million jobs, because already in the earlier fellow speaker already given for the 39 million jobs, which was 8% of the total employment in the country. That's also one of the main contribution. Then taking as well as for in the pandemic, almost 14.5 million tourism jobs were lost. This is also one of the studies conducted by the National Council for Applied Economic Research recently. As far as I think there's almost 14.5 million tourist jobs were lost. Then further taking for the foreign tourist arrivals, what is the foreign tourist arrivals in the data set taking into consider almost 2.74 million compared with 10.93 million in 2008. This is again we are showing for the negative growth of 74.9%. This is one of the thing we need to be why we need to be rethink tourism in the World Tourism Day we are celebrating today. Then share of India international tourist arrivals, that's also one of the component as far as taking into consider. Almost India is accounted almost 10.67% as far as only for the Asia specific reasons. Then further taking for the what is the tourism continues to play important role as a foreign exchange, very important. In 2019, as well as foreign exchange earnings from tourism almost 30.6 billion as compared 6.96 billion in 2020. This is again because in earlier also we discussed very important, that's for the negative growth. Again you are taking for the economy, taking for the as well as for the foreign exchange earnings, again it's in the negative growth. That's also one of the important component we need to keep it in mind, how to make for the rethinking tourism in the context of the economic development. Then further taking for the number of domestic tourist visits in India during 2020, again it's the same thing. Again it's having for the 610 million comparing it to 2021 million. So this is again it's a negative growth rate. Almost this is again due to the pandemic that we need to be understand. Then further you're taking for the number of tourists visit in India during that whatever the thing. This was the some of the data set shown for the how the tourism industry directly linking it in an economic development. Then these are all the some of the things. Probably I think I will skip on that data as far as understanding. Looking the foreign travel arrivals as well as for the NRI arrivals as well as for the international tourist arrivals. All the thing comparing with the previous year that showing for the negative growth. This is also one of the important aspect we need to be keep it in our mind as well as for the in the tourism is concerned. How to taking they're very important in the foreign tourist arrivals as well as for the data set is so that almost in 2020 out of the 2.74 million the foreign tourist arrival India majority of 79% arrived by air. So this is again that's also one of the fetching for the loss income taking into consideration for the civil aviation. That's also one of the interesting thing. Then also corresponding in 2019 there was a 77%. This is some of the thing taking for the preferred mode of transport, that is again adding for the value addition to the economic development. Then further taking for, because these are all very important because already we are aware of the thing as far as gross state domestic product per capita. Again taking for the thing probably taking for the economic survey report from the past 3 years or maybe past 4 years. Probably we'll have the some kind of these are all the state always in the forefront with respect to the GST per capita income, either maybe Goa or Sikkim or maybe Delhi. Taking into consideration various component, probably some of the triggering component is that the tourism. The Goa is the main that taking into consideration for the thing. Goa tourism sector contributing about 16.43% of the GST. This is also one of the component we need to be keep it in our mind. Again, the very important. Again, population also matters whenever you're taking for the per capita income is concerned. Then taking for the Sikkim also there in the thing. Then again, the Sikkim also contributing for the above the national average. Then again, taking for the other very important, taking for the capital of India as well as for the Delhi. Then taking for the secured 4th rank in total foreign tourist visit in 2020 with a total share of 9.50 as per the tourist statistics at a glance. So these are all the some of the data set given for the how to taking for the linking with the tourism as well as for the GSTP as well as for the per capita income of the respective state as well as for the country as a whole. Then further taking as far as urban tourism, because already in the fellow Dr. Kiran already given some of the component as well as for the United Nations WTO what they made an attempt as far as the taking into consideration for the sustainable development goals. As well as for the urban tourism, this is also very important. We need to be keep it in mind as a driving force in the development of many cities and countries, contributing the progress of new urban agenda under the 17 sustainable development goals. Especially out of 17 goals, probably goal number 11 is very important, making for the make cities and human settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Here they given for the more importance for the as well as for the rethinking for the tourism, taking for the given livelihood opportunity for the human settlement. Then also how we are making for the inclusive for the already given for the earlier speaker explored the pro for tourism taking into consider for the thing. Then again how we are making for the sustainability with respect to the encouraging tourism. Then again another important tourism is basically linked with how the city develops itself and provides more better living condition. This is again correlating with respect to the particular city, whichever the city is saying for the as well as for the tourism important. Then also we are measuring based on the what is the physical quality of life. Then also we are taking for the standard of living. Then also given for the what is the living condition to the resident to its resident as well as for the visitors. So this is all the some of the component as well as for the understanding for the urban tourism. Then taking the case of as well as for the Mysore Palace, this is again as a data set taking into consider, taking for the 3 period, 2019, 2020 and 2021. Now 2022, now we are celebrating for the world famous Mysore Dasara. Very importantly, we need to be looking the data set 2019-20 as well as for the 2021. As far as domestic, when you're taking for the domestic tourist, then again it is a drastically is taking into consider for the thing almost minus 2.51%. Then again taking for the foreign tourist arrival almost minus 96.16. This is again we need to be keep it in our mind. Rethinking of tourism, how to taking for the rejuvenating for the whatever the attracting for the tourist for the various activity induced or whatever the component. This is as a case example taking for the as well as for the Mysore Palace for the understanding for the urban tourism with respect to the in the cities specific. Then this is again taking for the already Professor Luthra sir given in the key address has given for the international tourist arrivals because almost taking for the in the taking for the various continents taking into consider for the international tourist arrivals almost taking for the almost 46% or taking for the Europe something that is for the percentage is recovered. Then only thing is the Asian Pacific only thing is still there and for the not only for the 10% is percentage is recovered. Rest of the thing need to be recovered. This is also one of the point we need to be rethink for the tourism in the present as well as for the celebrating for the World Tourism Day. Then this is again very important because as far as in India is concerned, we are spending so much money with respect to creating infrastructure. Then also very interestingly, as the government of India is spending 1 lakh crores investment as generating 5 lakhs jobs. This is again it's related with the corridor. Again we are taking for the various corridor based development based on the thing either taking for the Bangalore Mumbai industrial corridor or whichever the corridor. So much money they are spending investing and also generating for the so much jobs opportunity. The very important corridor-based tourism development that need to be linked because this is also one of the student is recently has done for the research on corridor-based tourism development. So based on the thing, he has taken the case of Kerala. Based on the thing, I'll take some kind of gist of these research with respect to the how corridor-based tourism development will increase, taking into consider the overall development. So based on the thing, he has taken the case of Kannur-Iriti corridor. This is the corridor almost having for the 520 kilometer of taking for the reaching to the state capital. Then it consisting of almost 42 kilometer in the stretch, taking into consider for this Kannur-Iriti corridor. Then also very interesting, they're linking with within that proximity there is a new Kannur International Airport. There is the thing that is also one of the prominence factor we need to keep it in mind, encouraging for corridor-based tourism development. Then understanding for the entire corridor-based tourism development, probably looking the various component or maybe in the depicted in the drawing, taking into consider the Kasaragod, Kannur. Then various cities are located along the corridor. Then also taking into consider the encouraging for the tourism. Then also there is an that is an international airport. That's for the Kannur International Airport also presence in the thing. Then again, addition to that, so many other. I think probably you have heard the Karnataka. There is in Kodagu district. That is also one of the famous tourist spot or maybe tourist visiting places. This was the some of the thing probably again you are taking for the Wayanad. This is also one of the interesting component. How you are going to be linking with this corridor with respect to the encouraging tourism. That is the main the purpose. Then taking the as a data set of the tourist arrivals that depicted in the map, taking into starting the 2009 to as well as the 2019, there is a taking into consider the darker shade. They're taking into consider there is a concentration of there is an arrivals, tourist arrivals for increasing trend. These are all the some of the things for the understanding for the in the graphical form. Then we need to be know for the what are the potentials areas and development sector in the around the corridor. This is again given for the which are all the area can be given for the tourism, which are all the area can be interlinked with the industries, which are all the area can be hospitality industry. Then also given for the some kind of agriculture. So many component is integrated. Then also taking for the various component Kasaragod, Kannur. These are all the some of the along the corridor. There is a linking with various places with potential areas for the development of the sector. Then again, focusing for the entire in the region, taking for the 42 kilometer stretch, taking for the corridor as a service center. So based on the linking with various thing, what is the proximity Then also this corridor as a service center for supporting for the integrated infrastructure facilities. Then also encouraging for the tourism. This is the main intention for this as well as for the as a corridor also playing very important role for the encouraging for the tourism. Giving these cases very important because government of India is spending so much money for the creating for the various corridors, either Bangalore, Mysore, or maybe Chennai, Mumbai corridor. Based on the thing, probably can identify some of the important nodes for developing for the as well as for the tourism importance. That is for the encouraging for the we need to be rethinking for the whatever the world tourism day we are celebrating. Probably I think already there is a draft national tourism policy already is there in the pipeline. Probably in that policy, probably they can integrate with these so much money they're spending for the corridor based development. Probably they can identify the some of the nodes, important tourism nodes probably can be developed, potential nodes can be developed. Then further taking into tourism improves the overall development of the economy. We have so many challenges as well as some opportunities. Then also taking for the tourism as a positive impact on local economy in terms of income generation as well as for the employment creation. This is again already some of the data set already given for the data corresponding to the GDP, corresponding to the GSTP. Taking for the of course the tourism sector is contributing for the income generation, then also taking for the employment creation. Then further discussing for the diverse employment opportunity. Then also very importantly, the tourism is a labor-intensive industry. They're very important taking into consider. Then again, we need to be understand for the how to then accommodate for the that creating an employment opportunity for the thing. That's also labor-intensive industry. Then taking various diversification and also expansion has become the one of the largest and fastest growing economic sector globally. So then again, you taking for the on an average as well as for the growth rate of the tourism, probably taking for the 2019 or maybe 2018, on an average more than 10% of the that is for the growth rate of the tourism sector. Then again, taking for this diversification, then how do you going for the taking for the in the as well as for the taking into the diverse employment opportunity. Then promotion of domestic tourism. So based on the data set, probably taking for the aspect for the entire globe, are you taking for the respective countries or maybe respective states, probably will come to another major share will be there for the as a domestic tourism. So very important how to promote the domestic tourism. That is a challenges. Probably we need to be rethink whenever you're making the some kind of policy or maybe whatever the policy is there in the thing. Probably we need to be rethink for what has to be promoting for the domestic tourism. That's also very important. Then again, the further corresponding diverting outbound tourists to domestic tourists. So this is very important. Probably I think taking into account so much money you will need to spend for the going for the taking for the various other countries. Probably we can create a for the within the encouraging for the domestic trips taking into consider. The one of the interesting thing is so Karnataka government had made Karnataka tourism policy 2020-26. Under the tourism policy, they have made for the tourist circuit development. As given for so much money, they invested for the tourism circuit development. Under the tourism circuit development, connecting within the circuit with respect to the coastal tourism, then also given for the ecotourism, heritage tourism, rural tourism, spiritual tourism, as well as for the wildlife tourism. So these are the some of the area they are given for the as a tourism circuit, probably encouraging for the taking into consideration for the domestic trips for the particular area. This is also one of the interesting component is there in the Karnataka Tourism Policy 2020-26. Then again, there is an opportunities for innovative small-scale business operation. This is again very important. Probably I think in the tourist places, probably you can see for the various livelihood. Probably so many that households is mainly depend on the tourism for the livelihood opportunity with respect to the various articrafts or whatever the things. Probably that's also one of the small scale business operation. Probably can that's also an opportunity for the under the tourism thing. Then also it will benefits for the urban as well as the regional as well as the rural economy. So this is also very important. Probably we need to be rethink. Then further again taking for the Ministry of Tourism, they given for the support for the promotion of culture, authenticity and natural assets. This is very important. They started for the recently they're taking into consider for the your tourism, encouraging for the under the India at 75. They started for the your tourism, taking for the encouraging for the all the institutional level or maybe in the student or maybe youth can participate in the taking for the supporting for these your tourism. This is also one of the things probably we need to be rethink as well as for the tourism, because already some of the attempts were made for the documentation. Then the support for infrastructure related development and maintenance. So this was some of the component understanding for rethinking of tourism as well as for the in the context of the economic development. Probably I think we need to be taking for the various policies there in the respective state, or maybe taking into the country specific. Based on the thing, given more emphasis on whatever the money you are spending for the corridor based development, probably you can identify for the potential nodes. Then probably you can create for the tourist hub in the potential hubs. Probably that will having for the advantage for the creating for the employment opportunity. Then also taking for the generating income. Then probably then there is one of the important component for the economic development. So these are all the, some of them I as well as for the perspective with respect to rethinking tourism as well as for the economic development as well as for in the occasion of World Tourism Day. First of all, I'll thank Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor D. Jaspal Singh Sandhu, then Professor Dr. Ashwani Luthra, then fellow speaker Dr. Kiran, and then again probably Dr. Saksi, then moderator Rituraj. Probably if there any, thank you very much given an opportunity for this engaging this session. If there are any questions and answer, probably I can clarify. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. H.S. Kumara. It was very much a relevant discussion about the tourism industry and economic development. As you have said very well that COVID has definitely impacted the tourism all across the world, and especially the smaller businesses. And Sir has discussed about two areas. One is Mysore Palace, and second the case study of a tourism corridor. Yes, definitely, Sir has highlighted that we need to overall improve the tourism industry, and we need to address various challenges. These challenges include income generation, employment, and promotion of domestic tourism. Thank you very much, sir, for highlighting these key issues. And definitely, we need to rethink tourism. So, our next speaker is Dr. Sakshi Sani with us. So, Dr. Sakshi Sani is an assistant professor in Guramda School of Planning, Guru Nanak Dev University. She has more than 10 years of teaching experience, and she has done her PhD in urban planning on development of towns established by Sikh gurus in East Punjab. She has more than 20 research papers and various book chapters in her credit. In addition to that, she has also presented various topics, discussions in various forums, and her interests are urban history, urban heritage, infrastructure planning, governance, and research methodology. Now I invite Dr. Sakshi Sani to put across her views on the day. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Ritu. Good evening, everyone. So just 2 minutes, I'll just start presenting. Can you see my presentation, Ritu?
Yes.
It's come.
Yes, it is visible. But it's not, yes.
It's full screen now? Okay. So good evening. I'll be talking on rethinking tourism for economic development. My topic would be slum tourism. So this is a new term. Actually, it's an old term, but we'll see from a different angle, how do we see poverty. So it is also known as ghetto tourism and poverty tourism. It is a type of city tourism that involves visiting impoverished areas. So it was originally focused on the slums and ghettos of London and Manhattan in the 19th century, when affluent Londoners visited the East End and they went to see ghettos with poverty and filth. So they were surprised, the upper richer class was surprised. So this kind of tourism grew among the affluence of the Europe and even in USA. So from this, the term slumming came into the dictionary around 1894. And then visits to the Lower East Side of Manhattan slums were a regular feature. So they went to different types of shanty neighborhoods of South Africa in the wake of anti-apartheid movement. So we can see that it is very prominent in South Africa, India, Brazil, Kenya, Philippines, Russia, and US. We'll be talking or discussing the case of Dharavi. In India, Dharavi has a slum tourism, and I'll be talking in detail about this. Also in favelas of Rio. So tourists pay for guided tours, and there are guide operators who take you to the whole of the slum area. The focus is on the economy generation of the area through various activities running, and also they focus on the issues of people. So we'll take about case of Mumbai, and in that I'll be discussing Dharavi. So it is considered to be one of the world's largest slum. It was founded in 1884 during the British colonial era, and it was originally inhabited by fishermen when the area was creeks and it was full of swamps. Later on, this swamp began to fill in due to natural and artificial causes, and it became as a rural migrant hub, and who were moving to urban Mumbai in search of jobs. So right now, it's estimated there are about 6 to 10 lakh people, about 1 million people who live in this crammed area. And there were people who were working in factories, and they were migrating from Bihar and other rural Indian who were coming to urban Mumbai. So in a city like where house rents are among the highest in the world, and it's opposite to Bandra Kurla complex, so we have Dharavi, which is providing a cheap and affordable option to those who want to earn. So rent here can be as low as 185 rupees per month. So this is according to the Lonely Planet. So we have different kind of people who are multi-religious, multi-ethnic, and it's a diverse settlement. And it is stated that 69% of people have the most literate slums here in India. So now how it is generating economy and how it is promoting tourism, it has large number of thriving small scale industries. So it is producing garments, embroidered garments, export quality leather goods, pottery and plastic, and bakery. So let us begin our journey to Dharavi. So I'll take you to how the slum tour in Dharavi goes about and what are the kind of activities they cover here. So first is the recycling yard. About 9,400 tons of waste is generated daily. And with 15,000 factories which are dedicated to recycling and sorting Mumbai's waste, Dharavi has employed about 250,000 people. And 80% of Mumbai solid waste is recycled here in this area. Then we have 60% of Mumbai's plastic waste, which is recycled at Dharavi. So if we compare it to Singapore, it's 19%, and 19% is that too with the government initiatives. So here, Dharavi plastic recycling employs about 10 to 12,000 people. And there is no intervention by the government. People are doing it by themselves. So this I took from the site. It's called Reality Tours and Travel. So they do a Dharavi tour, and for each person, it's like 2.5 hours visit. And they charge about 1,250 rupees per person. And in this, they'll show you how the economic generation is done through Dharavi. Then there is this cardboard recycling yard, like your plastic recycling yard. So here, all the cardboards are recycled. Then you have these recycling workers. So this is all shredded and grinded, and then reuse of this material is done. So if we see this economy of Dharavi, it's like a circular economy where everything, it's called circular economy gold mine, where everything from, you can say, plastic ballpoint to car batteries to computer parts to almost plastic bags, tins, whatever comes into your mind. People are doing all the scrap material. Everything is sorted here. Then the second thing is the textile manufacturing. So here, textile manufacturing takes about, there are about 20,000 small textile industries which are still running. Post-COVID, there has been an effect. And these people went back to there was a lot of reverse migration in which people went back to their rural areas. But right now also, there are about small, tiny units which are running, and they are doing all kind of block printing, embroidery units, and dyeing units, which are here. These are small industrial units, you can see. Then these are the people who are about skilled labor, who are working in these factories. They are rural migrants again, and they are coming back from Bihar, and they send back their money, which they earn here to feed their family. So they earn much more what they get in their states. Then there is this pottery colony. So the Kumbharwara pottery in Dharavi, it is one of the famous pottery colony, and all the artisans, like all the diyas for Diwali and all the garden pots, they are made here, and it is also exported outside the state. So during the tour, they also take little money, and then they teach people how to make this pottery. Then we have soap making factories. Again, this is a huge unit where soap making is done, and then it is again exported to different parts. Then we have leather tanneries. So it has dozen of tanneries. It transforms the skin mainly of goats into clothes, shoes and wallets. They are which later on sold by European brands. They put their own brand. Now Dharavi has started its own brand. And these informal work, it produces about 50 million to 1 trillion per year. And people of Dharavi, how much they must be getting? They get about $500 to $2,000, which is about 4,000 to 15,000 per month they are getting. Then there is a Dhobi Ghat. Dhobi Ghat is an open air laundromat in Mumbai. So washers clean their clothes, all the linen from 5-star hotels and hospitals in Mumbai. It comes here, and this is the oldest Dhobi Ghat. So it was constructed in 1819. So when these Mehtas and all the other people were making redevelopment plan, so people did not agree because they were given apartments and they said, where will we take our animals? Where will we take our these tanneries, and where will the Dhobi Ghat will go? So because of political reasons also, but Dhobi Ghat is also one of the contributory factors. Then we have dyeing process, sorry. So all the material, cotton is dyed here, and then it is sent to the textile industries. So raw material is generally dyed here. Then there are 2 tons of food, like, sorry, Dharavi makes lot of papads and it is a side dish. So women in Dharavi, they are into this industry, and it is then transported and exported to different parts inside and outside India. This is bakery. So it has the highest bakery, and this bakery not even serves Dharavi or Mumbai. Even if you see the 5-star hotel chains, they have their bakery from here. So next is your this embroidery work. Embroidery work to all the parts of India, it goes from here. You can see this embroidery units in Dharavi. Then we also take into, during the slum tour, they also show the street art. So it's on particular roads. There were about mural artists, there were about 15 to 20, they were called across the world, and they were allowed to paint on the walls of Dharavi. So they say that it has impacted the local community, and they, with the sense of pride and empowerment, they show it to the outer world. This is the street arts you can see. These are the murals. Then there is a community center. I was talking about reality tour and travels. So this fellow, he is the one who's born and brought up here. He is employed in reality tours and travel. So this community center is supported by the funds from the tour. It provides education in English and computer training to the teenagers and young adults of Dharavi. So they also have these dancing and yoga classes which are hosted at the community center. So all the people who are earning at reality tours and travels, they put a part of their profit into running these community centers. So there are about a lot of schools also where a lot of NGOs are working, and they are helping them do this. So these are the typical tours when you go to Dharavi, and then they have this group photos with either the foreigners or the locals. So locals, if you pay a little more amount, they'll take you and you can purchase their stuff like pottery. You can even have souvenirs, and you can have a meal purchased at their home. So the locals sit with the outsiders and they tell them the typical Maharashtrian food is served. And that's how a little bit income is generated by the residents of Dharavi. And mostly all the tour guides are from here who are actually familiar with the area. These are some of the travel agents. Almost everybody is offering these kind of slum tourism tour, and a lot of foreigners for leisure and for entertainment, and even if they want to have a after seeing the movie Slumdog Millionaire, they want to come and have a visit. So these are different tour operators who take you to the ride of this Dharavi slum, and their rent varies from like 950 up to 2,000, 2,500, depending on the time period and the kind of group you are watching and the kind of activities you are choosing. So conclusion is, we are improving the local lives. Even if it is little, some money is entering into the community and it is helping the residents. Tours help in changing our perception of poverty, that slum is a very shabby area, it is shanty. But on the other hand, if we see all the economy of Mumbai, it is coming from Dharavi. The operators also make sure some part of profit are recycled into local communities, and they involve them into various ways. So any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sakshi, for a really interesting topic about the slum tourism. Dr. Sakshi has very relevantly highlighted that by discussing the case of Dharavi slums, that we need to improve the local life. This can be done with the help of by promoting tourism, that how they do their daily activities. And I think there is need to identify these different activities and link them in a formal way, so that tourists can come and they can actually engage in those activities, and it can really promote the slum tourism. So now the house is open for the question answer session. So all the participants, if they have any queries, they can raise their hands. So I will ask one by one. If you have any questions, the house is open for the questions. Yes, Zubair Ahmed Nayak has raised his hand. So yes, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Ji.
My concern is regarding this slum tourism. Instead of redevelopment, are not we going for the promotion of slums? As the slum tourism, owing to its nature being shanty and unplanned, it will be a problem for this tourism. Plus, the most important thing is this slum tourism sustainable, and what are the implications of it on the local environment?
So I think this question is for Dr. Sakshi, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening, Zubair.
Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, so I would like to answer about this. See, there are two sides of slum, and this one I showed because generally it is the other side we show, like I told you about Slumdog Millionaire. But this is also one of the informal economy, and it is generating, I told you about 1 trillion amount of money. About the redevelopment plan, of course, they have made lot of plans. If you see from SEPT University to Mehta's to their architects who are sitting outside, they have made number of redevelopment projects of Dharavi. You can go and check on net also, but nothing has been implemented because of the vote banks there. So instead of saying that or seeing the negative side, we can also see or focus the positive side, that it's generating a lot of money and informal economy is being generated. About the sustainable, initially there were no legal connections of water and electricity, but these people only are giving them the legal connections also, because somewhere or the other it has a population of whole city or a town, and there are reasons the redevelopment plan is not being implemented. So we always see tourism as heritage tourism or religious tourism. So this was a unique topic. If you'll see researchers also, I happen to work on a paper. There are equal amount of researchers who talk about ethical and unethical side. If we go into that, that's another debate we can do any time later on. Okay?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, Zubair.
Anyone else wants to ask a question? So I have one interesting finding, that like there are various policies of different states, and the center has also been drafting a policy. So I think we need to have one single vision for the entire nation, because each state is promoting tourism on their own. So how we can collaborate with the different states so that we can have a overall tourism vision, so that we can overall think about the various opportunities that can be grabbed at the various levels. So how this can be achieved? So I think I asked this question from Dr. Kiran Sandhu to please put some light on this.
Yeah, thank you, Ritu. That's a very interesting observation. Indeed, I think, like I mentioned, that the pro-poor approach has to come to center stage. That is number one. The national policy is more than 20 years old. You see, now it was actually made in 2002. And since then, we've had, I think, 2 drafts. The last draft came after the pandemic in 2021. However, the draft needs to be a little bit more elaborate in terms of, having, different contents related to policy matters, whether it is pro-poor or whether it is investment in tourism. And not only that, I would go to the extent of the policy detailing out different forms of tourism, because India is like a subcontinent and we have so many possibilities of not one but all kind of tourism. All different kind of sectors can be identified, and then different states within the country have their own policies which are taken. I mean, we do have, they still continue to have their own policies, but yet I think they should draw some of the contents from the center policy, so that there is a link between the center and the state policy guidelines. And then detailed guidelines are drafted, and then they are given to think tanks such as the universities within the states can collaborate with the tourism departments in the state, with the Ministry of Tourism in the state, with the Ministry of Housing and Poverty Alleviation in the state. Because you see, in my opinion, tourism is very multidimensional. No single organization is going to, can be the only one in charge or taking control of the entire, dimensions. So there has to be a systematic link. So if we talk about poverty alleviation, then poverty alleviation is not only the job of the ministry, but it has to be seen which are the different sectors which can target it. So the state governments, yes, they have to play a very proactive role. And then within the states, the 3-tier system, the districts, the blocks, and the rural areas themselves have to be engaged. So I think a complete roadmap, a huge amount of unexploited or unexplored areas are there for research in tourism. And that is why I think this topic for the seminar in this particular post-pandemic year is such a brilliant idea when we talk about rethinking tourism, because it's about thinking the entire nature of tourism which we have had in the post-independence times. And then this is a watershed or a landmark. So post-pandemic, how can we really carry it further so that India has the potential and we could actually become again one of the largest generators of tourism, and we could replace so many other countries. And right now we are around number 8. We have the potential to reach number 1, provided we are able to unravel certain very, very streamlined policies and bring such kind of agendas to the mainstream. So I hope I have answered your question in a nutshell.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. So anyone else want to ask a question? They can go ahead. I think there are no more questions from the participant sides. So to conclude this session, I would like to thank, first of all, our worthy Vice Chancellor for giving us the opportunity to hold the webinar. On the behalf of Center for Science and for the Center for Sustainable Habitat, I would like to thank all the speakers, Dr. Kiran Sandhu, Dr. H.S. Kumara, and Dr. Sakshi Sani, for highlighting various key issues that we need to focus upon to rethink about the tourism. I also thank all the participants for the patient listening. And most importantly, I would like to thank the technical team of Center for Sustainable Habitat, because they are at the back end controlling everything. Just another thing I would like to make highlight, that there were around more than 200 participants had registered for the program, and more than 100 participants had joined through this various platform. Like there was a YouTube channel on which it was live streaming, and in the Google Meet as well. So in the last, I would like to say that again a reminder that email will be coming to you. You need to fill the registration form, and after that you will receive an e-certificate. So Dr.
One says announcement I would like to make with the permission of Dr. Ritu.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Of course, she has already conveyed her thanks to all the participants from different organizations. One announcement I am going to make is that on 3rd of October, we are having World Habitat Day. and we'll be organizing an international webinar on that occasion. And I would request all the participants of this webinar to rejoin us on 3rd of October, so that all of us gain out of the experiences of the experienced distinguished speakers. Thank you very much. We will meet on 3rd of October. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ritu. You may
Thank you,
conclude.
sir. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you very much.